I'm delighted to welcome today Richard Barriball from auracleanse.co.uk. So two things there, Richard. Your surname is rather unusual, never come across that before. So I want to know what the origin is, if you know. And secondly, the Aura Cleanse, that's fascinating.
I'm Cornwall born and bred. I spent all my childhood in Cornwall, never left apart from a school trip to London. And then I joined the Royal Marine Band, and that was my first time outside of Devon and Cornwall. So I was in the Royal Marine Band for 25 years, married a Fifer, divorced a Fifer. And it was through my journey with my ex-wife that I became interested in the mind-body link, because when her dad passed away, she developed PTSD. And without going into too much detail, there was some background behaviour which produced the PTSD as a result of his death. So the worse her mind got, the worse her body became, to the point she was allowed to keep morphine in the fridge to inject herself with, even though she was a suicide risk. So, and because of my journey with her, that got me thinking about the mind-body link, how the mind connects with the body, with our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and how it all interacts. And when I lost my mum in 2007, I gave an attempt at the kiss of life on my dying mum's body, and didn't work. So naturally I'm grieving for the first year of her passing. And then during the first year of her passing, I developed a pain in my left foot. I had no physical reason for the pain to be there whatsoever. And I was walking with a limp, and I was on a repeat prescription of painkillers. On the first anniversary of my mum's passing, I released the need to grieve, and the pain in the left foot dissipated within hours. So I was like, well, there's a connection there. I could see there was a connection, but I didn't understand it at the time. Now, as a biotherapist, I know that the left side connects with my feelings with female energy, and the foot connects with home and family, the root chakra. So I manifested that pain in my left foot as a result of my own grief.
Fascinating. You mentioned a word there, you just slipped a word in there which wasn't quite clear, bio something or other. For the benefit of the listeners, can you explain what that word was and what it is?
Right, so bi-aura therapy is a diploma in bioenergy healing. So it's bi-aura. And I was trained by the BioAura Foundation, which is now known as BioAura International. And it's an 8-month course of study, 1 weekend per month for 8 months, focusing 1 month on each chakra. And then on the 8th month, having the exam and the case studies to be presented in and marked on. And so it's a very thorough course of study. And we had to have 6 case studies with 4 sessions per case study. My second case study gave up a repeat prescription of painkillers after 1 session. So bi meaning 2, I bring up earth energy, bring down universal energy, and I spin spirals over all the chakras. And by getting the chi moving, it helps to invoke a sense of letting go of any negative emotions which may be having an impact on the human body and oneself in general. So my second case study gave up a repeat prescription of painkillers, even though it was a physical car accident where she hurt her lower back. Not long after the car accident, she had a friend who passed away in Afghanistan while serving Queen and Country. And her partner was of the opinion, once the funeral's done, end of, and then we're talking about it. So because of all these emotions sitting at the back of a sacral chakra, a seat of emotion, which she couldn't express, this was having a negative impact on her physical condition where she hurt her back in the car accident. So by releasing the emotions on the BioAura therapy session, she realised after I left that she didn't need her painkillers anymore because the pain had gone, because she let out the raw emotion.
Fascinating, isn't it? Absolutely fascinating. And I'm a great believer, where the mind goes, the body follows. And it's so true, isn't it? What we think about, you know, we manifest. And then when you have people who are kind of effectively bringing on their own symptoms because of the way they're thinking, the way they're behaving and so on, it's a fascinating topic, which we could go down that rabbit hole, but there's so much more to talk about. You mentioned music in your early days with the band. You still do music today, don't you?
Yeah, I write songs. I've channeled music linked to my past lives in Buddhism. I've channeled songs with my spirit twin, who was never born. After my mum passed away, I a few weeks later I was ironing, and the name Rachel Barriball entered my head. I'm like, who's Rachel Barriball? Like, then the following Sunday at Spiritualist Church, I got a message from the medium that I have a twin brother in spirit. When my mum was carrying me, she had a bleed, and she didn't tell anybody. She was like afraid to tell anybody, you know. So apparently I've got a twin brother in spirit who was never born.
Wow, fascinating. Fascinating. You mentioned past lives. For listeners who've not heard about past lives, how would you kind of introduce somebody to the concept of past lives?
Oh, I think your belief has to be very open and, you know, quite a deep thinker in the first place, because once you discover a past life regression, it sort of blows your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if your belief isn't in the state of being able to handle it, then you know, it could be quite challenging. So I think having a deep mind in the first place is quite essential before having a past life regression. It certainly blew my mind, you know. So
yeah. So it's not for everybody then, is it?
maybe not. I mean, some people think more physical and scientifically, and you can't convince a skeptic, because your belief shapes your reality, as the Abraham Hicks law of attraction suggests. Whatever you believe is, you know, defines how your life develops.
Yes, yeah, absolutely true. I've heard about past life regression on and off over many years, but I dipped my toe in earlier this year with a lady who's also up in Scotland. I believe you're Edinburgh based, aren't you? Where you do your wonderful work.
Yeah, I work in a shop called Shining Light. I live in Dunfermline, and I used to see clients in my home, but then the way you use your home defines how you feel when you sit in your home. So I was feeling my client's energy lingering around when I was sat at home. I'm like, I don't like this. So I don't see clients at home anymore. So I work in the Shine Light shop in Edinburgh with a lady called Georgina, who I've known for 10 years now. And she helps my business, I help her business. So all good.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I think collaboration is definitely the way to go, rather than, you know, we're brought up that, you know, we have to be the biggest, the best, the fastest, whatever it is, and the competition. Now it's collaborations definitely is the way to go. We all help each other at the end of the day. So I did a past life regression with a lady who was doing chakra healing, and I was amazed that she could do it over the internet. So I'm presuming you also can do things over the internet.
Yes, I offer distance healing. I've been clairsentient since I changed my spirit guide. I can't remember if it was 2013 or 2014, but when it first started, I was attending an open circle discussion at the Edinburgh Theosophical Society, and every time a different person started speaking, I'd feel a change in my energy, aches and pains in my body or whatever, every time a different person started talking. I'm like, what the going on here? Like, you know, and I thought it was going mad. Anyway, the following day I had a client in Shining Light, and I picked up about 5 different things going on in her body with my new clairsentient gift. And at the end of the appointment, I asked my client, did I get it all? Did I miss anything out? And she said, no, I think you got them all. So my new gift helps me to connect with other people's physical or emotional pain. My intuition doesn't know the difference between the two. So I was feeling an ache on the right side of my back, parallel with the heart chakra, on a distance healing session. So I gave this feedback to the client, and she said, my back's fine, she said. So then I asked her, are you grieving for a male in your life? And she said, oh, I just split up from my boyfriend. So I was feeling her emotional pain physically on my body, even though physically she was fine.
Wow, gosh. I heard you talk about a story recently about a dog, because you work with pets as well, don't you?
Yes, I was sending distance healing to a dog, and I felt a discomfort going up my upper right bum cheek as I'm spinning in spirals over the chakras. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? Like, And so I gave the feedback to the owner, and the owner inspected the area that I defined on the dog, upper right bum cheek, and they found some old, stuck, dried poo caught in the long hair of the dog.
Gosh, if you couldn't make that one up at all, couldn't make any of it up. It's just quite incredible. With the work that I do with behavioural profiling, I see behaviours and how they manifest into illness and disease and all kinds of things. And it's fascinating when you point out to people how their behaviour or how their mind is affecting what's happening in their life. As you say, it's not everybody who can kind of go deep in the mind, but for those who got it, it's an instant wake-up call to them. They can immediately see, oh, if I'm doing that, this is happening. If I'm doing that or thinking that, such and such else is happening. So it's fascinating with all these real life stories. You know, it's not, I don't think it's science. I don't know if it's spiritual. I don't know what the word is to describe it, but it's real, isn't it? It's not woo-woo stuff. It is, or maybe it is woo-woo for some people, but it's real.
Yeah, well, you could say the human body can be used as a scientific divining tool for picking up on the imbalances of others, for those that are sensitive to it. And in Star Trek, you see them using all these different tools to measure this, that, or the other energy. It's the same principle, really. Yes,
because the world, the planet, is magnetic, isn't it? There's all these different frequencies and there's sounds and so on. Do you find the sounds through your music? Do you find that you're attracted to certain types of music that you write or that's channeled through you?
My taste in music is very eclectic. I like a wide range of music, from soul to a little bit of classical. Some classical standards I like, but being a pianist, because you're forced to, you know, practice these things when you're a kid learning an instrument. It's not really the passion classical for me. It's more being creative and making something that no one has heard before. That's where I get the most of my musical pleasure, creating songs and music and whatever.
Wonderful. So how does, when you're saying about spinning spirals and clearing chakras and these feelings you get and so on, talk us through what actually happens? So somebody says, I'd like you to do an aura cleanse, Richard. So what happens? I mean, do you stand somewhere? Do you sit somewhere? Does the person have to do anything?
Right. So if someone sees you in person in Edinburgh, then they ask a few questions first and foremost, making sure that the client is open to what may or may not happen to keep the expectations realistic. And the client starts off in the energy session standing, and while the client stood, I bring up the earth energy, bring down the universal energy, and I spin the spirals over the chakras. And there's different techniques to balance the energy with the left and the right of the body and the right to the left and head to toe. So the client stood for about 10 minutes, and then I sit the client down, and then the client sat down, relaxed with feet on his footstool for about another 10 minutes. Then I'll take the footstool away with the feet, so the client's feet are on the floor, still seated, for another 10 minutes. And then the final 10 minutes at the end, standing again, during which I feel each chakra from root to crown and mark down whether I feel positive energy, heavy energy, whether it's projecting forward to the future or back to the past. And where the imbalances occur within the energy field will give a good indication of what's going on at an emotional and a physical level. Each chakra has its characteristics. Shall I describe each chakra, Tina?
Please do, it's fascinating.
The right of the root chakra is to be with a saboteur of fear. So fear affects the breath. So the most common one being panic attacks. So if someone has a panic attack, their breath is affected. Same with COPD. One of my first home visits as a qualified therapist was a client with terminal COPD. So I knocked on the door, and the client opened, and she was hooked up to an oxygen machine, really long tube, so she could traverse the different parts of her home. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I letting myself in for here? Like, you know. So with one question, I got down to the root cause of the issue and asked her, do you consider yourself a fearful person? She said, I've been living in fear all my life. She was fearful her father would find her again after being sexually abused in childhood. So the fear she was carrying was having an effect on her body with the COPD. So by helping her release the fear, she lived way past the date the doctors gave her for life expectancy. The right of the sacral is to feel and have pleasure. So this connects with the lower stomach. It's the seat of emotion. The element of the sacral chakra is water. So your emotions affect all the fluids in your body. So affects your periods, affects your blood. And this chakra gets challenged if your life is a bit routine, dull, not enough fun and spontaneity in your life. So I had a client, the second case study I talked about. So as I was saying, the sacral chakra is seat of emotion. So by letting go of the negative emotions she was carrying towards the friend she lost in Afghanistan, she all of a sudden released the pain that she was carrying at the back of her back. Solar plexus, the right to feel, the right to act and be individual. So this is your sense of self, your sense of identity, what you do for a living, roles and responsibilities we take on through life, and your image. I suppose if you're a woman, you're putting on makeup or whatever, that will be solar plexus. I must apologise, I've got to put my phone on silent. I should just turn it off now. So, solar plexus, I had a client whose partner was suffering from terminal pancreatic cancer. And so I asked my client if there was anything going on in her partner's life which was producing a challenge to his sense of self, sense of identity, or any shame being carried. The subject of the solar plexus is shame. So she said, well, even though he's in a long-term relationship with me, he's still married to his ex-wife. So connect the dots, you can see why he got terminal pancreatic cancer. Pancreas connects to the solar plexus, it's around that part of the body. I would say with any condition which was related to any part of the body, more often than not, it's the nearest chakra associated to that body function. Any type of cancer, I would say, is intense emotions. When I had a new laptop and I wanted to get my aura reading software on my new laptop, I had the software and the hand plate, the hardware, for over 10 years, and they wouldn't give me technical support to get it uploaded on my new hard drive. So if I wanted technical support, I had to upgrade to a new hand sensor and a new program. So I didn't have the money at the time. So this was producing a challenge to my sense of self and what I do for a living. And consequently, I developed a lump in my left armpit where the lymph node is. And this I discovered about 3 days later. So I knew within myself what was causing that lump. So I reversed my thought process and my emotions connected to that drama. And the lump went away as quickly as it came. So having all this information is very good for self-help as well. Heart chakra, the right to love and be loved, with a saboteur of grief. I had a client that I explained earlier. I was feeling back pain, so the right of the heart chakra. So the right's the male side of the body, and the back relates to your feelings about the past. So if you're carrying grief for male energy, that will manifest on the right side of the heart at the back. So that's why I asked that question, are you grieving for a male in your life, because of the position of the tension that I felt at the back of the heart chakra. So it also relates to work-life balance, and if you're doing too much, then it'll affect the heart chakra. Also, acceptance of self and others. So if there's a situation or a person that you find hard to accept, then that affects the heart chakra as well. Some philosophy I channeled while I was sitting on a train, I don't know. Well, I'll say I channeled it. It came into my head while I was sitting on the train. And then I shared it with somebody and they said, oh, my dad used to say that. So where I got it from, I don't know. So floated into my head once, if you can't change the situation, practice acceptance. If you can't practice acceptance, change the situation. It's a bit of a double-headed coin, but it suits my wordplay humor sort of thing. So so throat chakra, the right to feel, sorry, the right to speak and hear truth. So if you have a communication issue with a male partner, then your partner literally can be a pain in the neck if you have a communication issue with him. Before I got divorced, I had tension on the left side of my neck, and it was so bad I couldn't actually turn my head to check for traffic before pulling out, and I was relying on the wing mirrors too much. So after I got divorced, the tension in the neck went away. So it was a temporary thing, all to do with the mindset, of course. Third eye, the right to see with a saboteur of illusion. So if you're on a course of learning, it's that bit in your head that recognizes links or patterns to one thing and another. We dream in our third eye. We see a shape take form in our third eye if you're dreaming. And an interesting one with the third eye, is it looking forward to the future? Is it looking back at the past? Or is it nice and balanced and, you know, within the normal size of an aura in the moment of now? So it's good to be in the moment of now, but not to forsake planning and preparation for the next step, whatever that should be. So crown chakra, the right to know and learn. So when you're new on the holistic path, it's the thirst of wanting to know more and more and more. An excess in the crown would show as a spiritual addiction. So I got invited to a friend's yoga practice to demonstrate what I did as a biotherapist, and because it was a guinea pig from an audience, I didn't do the usual questions that I normally ask the client before I start a session, and consequently she fainted on me. So that was a bit embarrassing. So on the way to casualty, I was asking her questions that I should have asked her before I started, which I would normally do for seeing a client in person. And she said that she was using spiritual practices as a means of escaping from the mundane reality of physical life. So that was elevating her energy to a higher frequency, so she wasn't grounded enough to take charge of her physical body. I did an aura reading for a medium once, and she said to me, I keep falling down my stairs, she said. And she said she did psychic readings upstairs in her home. So I pointed to the frequency level that was showing on the aura reading that I was doing for her. And I said to her, you need to ground yourself before you walk the stairs, because her frequency was very high, being a psychic medium, you know. So the current of liberation helps us to connect, be at one with the divine, and the current of manifestation helps to take charge of our physical bodies, our physical environment, and the final station stop on the current of manifestation, the root chakra, the right to be, the right to bring things into being. And the crown chakra is all to do with knowledge, consciousness, and connection to the divine. So having a connection to both is good, but if we can average around the heart chakra, that's a good place to be, because that's the center of our being.
Oh, amazing. You were saying about the this hand plate. You put your hand on, you know, the client will put the hand on a plate, and then that gives a reading. So what actually happens? Is it going to be the electrical frequency that picks up, and then you see on a report somehow, do you?
Yeah, it measures things like heat and the temperature of the hand, and yeah, I'm not exactly sure about the science of how it all works, but just from the information from the left hand, it produces all the colors in the aura. And I was doing a little workshop with a few people, and the workshop was including how to see auras. Now, I don't see the aura very often, but I have done, and the best way to see an aura is to pair up with somebody else, because of the distance involved in seeing the energy. It's easier to see someone else's aura because it's further away than your own. So if you charge up the hands by rubbing them, and then like a butterfly, you should see energy streaming from the hands into a focal point in the middle. And if you move the hands about, it's easier to see the energy, because the energy therefore is moving as the hands move. So do it over a black surface. I had a black cloth that I had on the floor, and everybody was taking it in turns to pair up and see what they could see. And we could all see yellow energy from a particular person that was attending the workshop. So I said to her, quick, put your hand on the biofeedback hand sensor and see if the science agrees with what we see. And sure enough, predominantly yellow was showing in a aura field. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Is yellow good?
No such thing as a good or a bad color, but ideally we like to see bright colors as opposed to dark colors, because obviously a muddiness is an imbalance. But if there was a best color to have, I would say green, because that's the color of the heart chakra. And you know, it's the ideal frequency to resonate at for your frequency balance as well. So green would be the best color, I would say, but no such thing as a good or bad color, really, depending on what you're doing at the time.
Cool. This is absolutely fascinating, Richard. And how long have you been doing this in did you say Shining Light, the name of the shop where you are in Edinburgh?
Yeah, I've known Georgina, the proprietor of Shining Light, for 10 years. She started off in Morrison Street in Edinburgh. Well, no, she didn't start there, but that's when I started with her. And she's moved about several times around Edinburgh. She also briefly moved to Falkirk for just over a year, and she's gone back to Edinburgh again. So yeah, and I've been with her wherever she went. So
brilliant. So people can have this aura cleansing activity remotely. So it doesn't matter where anybody is in the world. Presumably, you pick up on the vibration, the energy, whatever it is.
Yes, with my clairsentience, I offer a 5-minute freebie. It's not exactly, you know, it doesn't have to be exactly 5 minutes. It might be slightly longer, might be slightly less, depends how much is going on. But yeah, I offer the opportunity for people to know anything that I'm picking up from them. And I wouldn't say I'm totally accurate. There's a certain pain threshold that spirit don't let me feel. So someone could have their arm in plaster, and because it's particularly painful, spirit won't let me feel it because it's too much to bear, you know. So an ache or a reasonable degree of pain I will pick up on, but if it's mega painful, then I don't feel it because it's too much for me to connect with.
Interesting. So everything you do now is you can replicate online what you do in person, although I suspect the in-person is more effective, is it?
I would say in person probably more effective, but I think that's because of one's belief and the ability to relax. Because if you're making the intention to relax when you're in the company of someone else or even a group of people, it's that much more focused because you're conscious of other people around you. But when when you're at home, it's very easy to get distracted if you're not alone, especially, and the ability to relax at home. I would say I like to think that I'm more intuitive on a distance healing session, because I haven't got the physical distraction of the client in front of me, but it's more powerful for the client to attend because of one's belief, I would say.
Fascinating. So for listeners, people who are seeing on video, they can see your auracleanse.co.uk on your backdrop, but for people who are listening to this on audio, we've got auracleanse.co.uk website. What are the other contact details, or is that the main one for you, Richard?
That's the main one. You can contact me through the website. I have a phone number as well, for people to see me in person. But for distance here, I like to keep things more electronic. I'm more proactive with my phone number for the Edinburgh area, because that's local, and seeing people in person. So
great, that makes sense. Is there anything in particular you want to say to the listeners before we close?
When I was in the Royal Marines, I was taught two things. Well, I was taught a lot more than two things, but there was two main things that they emphasized in basic training, especially the ability to not give a, you can fill in the blank, begin to there, but to put it more politely, surrendering and trusting that everything is happening as it should be, because it always is, according to our vibration and our ability to co-create with others, and cheerfulness in the face of adversity. That was the other thing. So these two principles have stood me in much good stead with all the crap that I've put up with in my life. So I would say, yeah, that's two good pieces of advice that I'm happy to share with others.
Wonderful, great guidance. And I wasn't a Marine, but that's how I've lived my life. So there we go. Maybe I was a Marine in a former life. Who knows? Who knows? Or equivalent of Marine.
Yeah. I've seen in the clients that I've received that if you care too much, then that has a draining effect on your own energy. So as a clairsentient, it's very important for me to detach and not allow the energy of others drag me down. So when somebody's seen me, I have to let go and just trust and surrender that everything is happening as it should be, because it always is.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the same, because when I got through my stage 4 cancer in a record 14 weeks, which was 6 years ago, I kind of got a name for myself for helping people with cancer. People were kind of flocking to me to help them. You know, you've kicked stage 4, you know, can you share what you've done? So I've gone from many years of volunteering and helping people to either reverse the cancer or deal with it in a better quality of life way or whatever. But recently I've managed to manifest and move towards my aim of helping people with preventative healthcare. Don't wait till things drop off when you've got a nasty diagnosis. You know, take control of yourself, you know, take control of your body, your mind, you know, etc., etc. Look after yourself. And I found the same thing. I was getting exhausted, totally exhausted with helping all these people. And it's surprising, not everybody actually wants to be healed. For some people, it's their way out. It's their get out of jail card if their life is really not happy and they get an illness. For some people, I've witnessed that it's, you know, they're quite happy to have the condition, and it's their kind of goodbye sort of thing. So people come from health and well-being in so many different ways, and it's been fascinating witnessing, watching, learning all about this. But my field is definitely about prevention and you know, looking after yourself as much as possible, but with a positive mindset, which we definitely agree on. Absolutely. You know, stuff happens to us, it's how we deal with it, isn't it, that makes a difference.
Right. And in one of my chakra blogs, as I like to refer to them, I talk about Darren Brown, and yes. I don't know if you saw when he was in a theatre and he got everybody into a good feeling headspace with his stage hypnotherapy, and afterwards people were saying that all of a sudden that whatever physical affliction they had was cured or lessened as a result of the meditation. So if cancer come out, if it said that people can beat cancer with their minds, then how did the cancer manifest in the first place? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's important not to let things happen.
Exactly, yeah, it's a whole combination of things, isn't it? It's the mind, the body, our environment, toxicity in the mind is really difficult to deal with. toxicity in the body, the environment, we can deal with those a lot easier than the mind. So it's the whole thing is fascinating, and I don't think there's just one magic thing that you can do. Apart from come to you for an aura cleanse. I think that sounds to me a very sensible place to start, and I shall be recommending your services, Richard. No question on that whatsoever.
And just one note about cancer. I remember reading, I can't remember what book or who the author was or anything, but I remember reading something about cancer where there's around 6 to 18 months of a gestation period between a life-changing event and the onset of cancer. I remember talking to a member of a choir I used to play piano for, where she said she had a cancer scare in her left leg. So I spoke to her about left side being feminine and legs referring to direction in life. And she said, well, she had a daughter that decided to move to Australia. And so because of her connection to her daughter, being a mother, that was the onset of the growth in her left leg. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a friend of mine woke up to this some years ago. She visited her mum in hospital, and her mum had breast cancer, so she was there for treatment. And there were 5 women in the ward, and the mother said to my friend, I don't know if this is a coincidence, but there's 5 of us here and we've all been widowed within the last 2 years. And breast cancer, poof. So yeah, there's a definite link. And a lot of the people that I look after now are people who I've looked after their spouses, partners, family members who've passed on, but we were able to give them a better quality of life and extend their life and that sort of thing. So some of them have kept in contact with me, and they know that they're at risk themselves. So I'm supporting them to be well on a preventative way. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a 2-year window within 2 years of somebody being having a grief situation is what it normally seems to boil down to. If you're widowed, you're bereaved in some way or another, some grief situation, then for the next 2 years there's a vulnerability. Obviously it doesn't mean everybody's going to get cancer, but there's a vulnerability to fall victim if you're not looking after yourself. If you're looking after yourself, then obviously that's fine, and that's what we're about, isn't it? In our various different ways, we want to help people to help themselves. So I've lost your voice now, Richard. You nodded and said something, and I didn't hear it. So it's time to say goodbye. Oh, there you go.
I just said that's right. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Wonderful. So thank you so much, Richard Barriball from auracleanse.co.uk. Lovely to speak with you today.
Thank you for having me.